In one word, what is police?
Give me a second because I don't like that word. The police are funded up the ass.
Wait, I've got an idea.
Austin, why on earth did you hit that woman?
Right, let me show you, baby. That ain't no woman. It's a man.
In one word, what is police?
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but that word should not be triggering PTSD unless your name is John Rambo. I mean, I'm suspicious now. What are you getting up to exactly that means you associate anxiety with the police? And is this your confession tape?
Give me a second because
Take a second. I'll do mine. Let's see. Police. Law, order, justice. Security. Sexy uniforms. No. I think civilization. But then again, I understand that having a group of men and women brave enough to clean up the toxic waste society produces is a precondition for that. Or, as Sam Harris once phrased it,
giving a monopoly on violence to the state is just about the best thing we have ever done as a species. It ranks right up there with keeping our shit out of our food.
But don't mind us, love. We're just agents of reality. Sorry, you were busy emoting. Continue, please.
What is police?
criminals.
Right, literally the opposite of what they are. I don't think I've ever been that wrong. Quick, ask her another question. What are hamburgers? Vegetables? Fuck off, mental?
Now come along, sis. Time to go see the doctor.
Oh, hello, doctor. How are you?
No, not that one.
I don't like that word.
Corrupt. They cover up everything they do wrong and don't take responsibility.
Bitch, please!
Do not try to boil the entirety of policing down to the blue wall of silence, okay? Corruption exists in every institution on earth. You can find studies of medical professionals that indicate 70% might conceal a mistake, even if doing so could harm their patient. And when you consider that hospital errors kill 250,000 Americans every year, maybe too high, right? Is that an issue? Yes. Should we be aware of it? Yes. Should we define doctors by it? Should we get on camera? What does the word doctor mean to you? Well, killer, obviously. Liar, they're corrupt, they lie and they kill people, in a nutshell. No, you'd be laughed out of the room. On balance, doctors clearly provide an incredible service to the community, and we acknowledge the job is complex, stressful, and that people screw up. When did we stop extending that same courtesy to the police?
Policing has always been systemically set up to interrogate and terrorize Black people and people of color.
No, it was systemically set up to interrogate and terrorize criminals and people of criminality. Now, if you're going to use black as a synonym for those things, then that's on you, my friend.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
But notice how we can't have a single fucking conversation that doesn't ultimately center around the bleeps. And yes, I am stealing that euphemism from Devon Tracy. He invented it, but you can't trademark memes, okay? That's not how this works. I'm using it now, and we will not rest until Joe Biden says it by mistake, which, given his proclivity towards bumbling, is more than possible. And can I just say, while we're here, Devon made a video the other day over at censored.tv that's 90 minutes long. It's a documentary. He made a documentary about the youngest black person, or person generally, I think, to be executed in the USA. Fascinating. I didn't know any of that story. He takes you through it with commentary, with analysis, with music, with visuals. You can watch that for $1, right? If you go to Patreon, you can watch that for the price of a raffle ticket. It's a mad world. Anyway, where was I? Ah, yes, the bleeps. The concept of policing has nothing to do with the bleeps. But look, if black people are attracting unwanted attention from the police, maybe we should help them out. I don't know. I don't want to get expelled from the white race for this, but I'm going to give them the secret. It's time. They've been through enough, don't you think? Ready?
Stop breaking the law, asshole!
Slave catching. That was the initial start of policing. As you can see in 2020, it still shows how police tend to terrorize people of color, particularly black people.
Have you ever heard the phrase, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing? So apparently there is a connection, right, between some of the early law enforcement agencies in the Confederacy and slave catching, which is not surprising, as slaves were property in the South, and if your property goes missing, you send somebody to retrieve it. The issue there is obviously the institution of slavery, not the institution of the police. But don't forget, the North did not have slaves. As Time magazine writes in How the US Got Its Police Force, the first publicly funded, organised police force with officers on duty full-time was created in Boston in 1838. Boston was a large shipping commercial centre, and businesses had been hiring people to protect their property and safeguard the transport of goods from the port of Boston to other places. These merchants came up with a way to save money by transferring the cost of maintaining a police force to citizens by arguing that it was for the collective good. So, is the argument that the Boston police force?
We're actually supposed to call it the service now. Official vocab guidelines state that the force is too aggressive.
The Boston police service, with an entirely separate history, can be painted with the same broad brush of racism? Can Minnesota, where George Floyd died, a free state whose 20,000 troops helped the Union win the Civil War? Give me a break. And crucially, of course, slavery is over. Okay, go to the South today. Go and speak to Chief Davies of Mississippi or Chief Broadway of Florida and tell them, as black officers in modern America, they are leading the moral equivalent of the slave patrols of the 1850s. Fucking dumb bitch.
In one word, what is police?
Violence, fear, brutality.
Whenever a police car is in the back of me, you think of worst case scenario and you think of problems.
I got into a car accident with a police officer and I immediately was in tears. I was shaking. I thought I was gonna be killed. I had a kid in my car. I immediately told them to close their eyes. Police scared me.
Wait, what? So you get into a car accident with a cop, right? Bump his fender or whatever. And your immediate reaction is to turn to your child and say, close them eyes, baby, 'cause mama's gonna be killed.
Oh, excuse me. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is John Kimball, and I love my car.
Yo, man, I'm just gonna keep an eye on it for you, all right?
And this is the moral panic that Sam Harris, again, describes, and that Douglas Murray attributes to the abdication of the adult. And there's a lot of truth to that. So obviously, much of this stems from the professors, right? But it's picked up by the journos. They run with it in a struggle to remain relevant and make a quick buck. The politicians love division because they can exploit it and gain power. And everybody knows it's bullshit. Everybody knows. God, I sound like Leonard Cohen up in here. But do you honestly think that Kamala Harris doesn't know the numbers around police violence? How rare it is? And that 9 times out of 10, it's completely warranted? In her capacity as a prosecutor, do you think she never worked out that the police are the heroes, by and large, and it's the criminals that are the problem? Shit. If she were watching my video right now, she'd be loving it. Okay? She'd subscribe. In fact, she probably is subscribed under a pseudonym. Red-pilled Indian. I don't know. But the point is, until the adults develop enough integrity to reclaim the narrative here, this kind of deranged reaction is just gonna get worse.
I've always, since I was little, had something in me that was uncomfortable around police, even being young and not knowing really anything about it.
They have a very misconstrued idea of what it means to protect and serve, and I think that they sometimes forget what it is or who it is that they're really supposed to be protecting and serving.
Help! Police! To protect and sever?
So let's go through the numbers quickly. There are 50 million police encounters every year in the United States. The number of civilians killed as a result averages at about 1,000, which means that if you attract the attention of a police officer, your chance of dying in any given year is roughly 1 in 50,000. You are just as likely to be killed walking down the street. But that's not the whole story, of course. An accident, like the one I just referenced, is typically random, right? Whereas 95% of police-related killings involve armed suspects, i.e. entirely justified. People shooting at cops. People holding their families hostage and making credible threats to kill them. Now, just because you're unarmed doesn't mean you didn't deserve to be shot, but let's give them the 50 or so such cases. This translates to a 1 in a million chance of being killed by a police officer in what we'll call questionable circumstances, okay? Literally 1 in a million. Do you think we might be wasting time on this?
Do you think we need to defund the police?
Yes.
It's as easy as that, ain't it, to you?
The police are funded up the ass. Like, all this money is taken out of public health services, communities that need it, education.
She wants to divert funding from the police to education. Do you have any idea how ass backwards that is? What is the point of an education? If criminal culture is so prevalent, young boys will drop out of college to rob, steal, and sell drugs anyway. Who's going to build another school in an area where crossing the street can quickly descend into gunfight at the OK Corral? If anything, the police need more resources to be able to go into these communities, clean them up, and pave the way for investment. Not to mention the fact the police serve all of us, okay? Your education is not my concern. My personal safety is. which is presumably why less than 20% of Americans actually support defunding the police. Thank God.
You need to reform the police and actually putting police officers who live in their neighborhood to police their neighborhoods. And maybe they'll be policing a little bit better with a lot more sympathy and actually see them for them.
Yeah, they do that. Where do you think these police officers are coming from? First flight out of Frankfurt? They're recruited from the community, aren't they? From the local high schools or whatever. And I love the little stealth fuck whites in there. This idea that white cops should be kept out of black neighborhoods because, you know, they just can't wait to drive Tyrone's head through a plate glass window. And it's total bullshit. A 2019 study published in the National Academy of Sciences sought to create a comprehensive database of officers involved in fatal shootings during 2015 and predict victim race from civilian, officer, and county characteristics. We find no evidence of anti-black or anti-Hispanic disparities across shootings, and white officers are not more likely to shoot minority civilians than non-white officers. Instead, race-specific crime strongly predicts civilian race. This suggests that increasing diversity among officers by itself is unlikely to reduce racial disparity in police shootings, and research displayed in the Journal of Criminology and Public Policy points out that, if anything, the police are less likely to shoot minority civilians than white civilians. Less likely. I mean, get a clue already. Please tell me there's someone in this video who knows their ass from their elbow on this.
Police are people. They're capable of good things, and they are fallible. Because they are people, they are to be respected and held accountable.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Hail the conquering hero!
Until we can actually start policing the police, nothing will get better. Like, our society will continue to fall victim to them.
But what do you say to someone who says, yeah, well, not all police are bad?
Prove me otherwise. That's what I would say.
Prove you otherwise about what? That not all cops are total bastards? Well, let me see. Would you take Frank Bullitt? John McClane? Who else? Columbo. Columbo was a good cop, wasn't he?
Thank you, sir. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me.
Ridiculous. And you know, the sad thing is, sensible people could have a debate about ways to improve all public services, including the cops. You could talk about recruitment. You could modify some policies or encourage the broader adoption of body cameras and things like that. But the second you want to go down the path of fuck the police are criminals, defund them, they oppress us with their white, cis privilege, whatever, the conversation is over. Okay? At that point, it is incumbent on all sane individuals to leave the room, which is what I'm going to do right now. I think we're done, aren't we? That was like trudging through a swamp of shit. And funnily enough, not even the worst video Cut has produced, right? I mean, they actually had one person in there who wasn't a complete maniac. Anyway, don't forget, all cops are heroes. Hashtag not all. Don't resist arrest, or I will make a video justifying your death. And like, subscribe, share, have a good weekend, I guess. Whatever. And yeah, that's enough.
Send it to the internet!